All right, welcome to this afternoon's meeting. I appreciate everybody being here for this work session. We will start off by asking any commissioner if they have any item on next week's preliminary agenda that you would like to discuss.
Not for a discussion, but I would like to put off my person for the library authority. The library.
Yeah, we'll
board.
take care of that in the agenda meeting tomorrow.
Oh,
Duly
okay.
noted.
Just take
Yes,
it off,
ma'am.
right.
Yes, okay.
Thank
You
you.
want to hold it till the next
Hold
meeting? Or you hold it
November.
until you get back to us?
I hold to you, I get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, at this time, we will have a presentation from Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Ramona Bivens, in reference to the Commissioner Block Grants. Ms. Bivens.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners, Madam Vice Chair, and Commissioner. This evening, we're going to discuss the Commissioner Block Grants that we award every year to the local nonprofits. This process begins in the spring, where the Clayton Collaborative, they hold a mandatory meeting with all of the potential applicants to discuss the process. This year, this meeting was held here in the boardroom. They all submit the applications. The Clayton Collaborative have a team. They have a team that reviews and rates the applicants. Once those are rated, they submit those to us here, both an electronic copy and a hard copy, in mid-May to mid-June. Included with that is a spreadsheet that includes the applicant information, the name of the applicant, the requested funding amount, as well as the score, the program service areas, and the participants, number of participants served, total, as well as those located in the county. Once I get that, I take that spreadsheet and I sort it by the score from high to low, and then submit it to you all for, I also make a recommended funding amount based on the availability of funding, and then we submit it to the board for consideration on awarding those funds. This year we have, there's two types of funding sources. We have what I consider discretionary, and that's the general fund money, and then the other special revenue funds. Under the discretionary side, we have a total of $2,027,000. We had funding requests of $2,828,756, and as always, we get more requests in funding availability, which is why we had to have a line, a demarcation of where we're going to stop the funding. So that's why we sorted. And this year I recommend awarding funding to those that scored 90 or above. We also have some new applicants, which I'll go through and discuss in a minute. The other funding source is special revenue funds through our DATE funds. That's the drug abuse treatment and education funds that we've used in the past to fund some of these programs that you'll see on the second page of the spreadsheet that you have in front of you, and it's at the bottom part of the screen here, as well as state drug funds. We have requested $210,000, but only $90,000 to award in the DATE funds, and then $130,000 on the state drug funds, and $100,000 that we have available to award. So we won't be able to fund some of those new requests on that area as well. So last Friday, I emailed you a spreadsheet with with all of the applicants on there. It also included the amounts that we awarded to them in 2019, 2020, and 2021. It has the requested amount on there, and then the recommended amount based on the scores. Hopefully you had a chance to review it over the weekend. I did add three more applicants that were originally left off. We did have the applications, but they weren't on the spreadsheet. And those, I emailed an updated spreadsheet earlier today, and then I provided one for you in front of you there. Those are highlighted in yellow. So basically for this evening, what I have asked Mr. Brinson from the Clayton Collaborative to attend the meeting, as well as he has requested the applicants to attend to answer any questions that you may have in any of the grants, and then to allow you an opportunity to make any changes in the funding amounts, the recommended amounts. Instead of just bringing it to you next week and just showing up on the agenda, we can discuss it tonight and make any changes that you may want to make. You do have a copy of all of the applications if you want to review the applications. in the thumb drive that I gave you, but I have an updated one that has the 3 new applications that were originally omitted off of that thumb drive for you as well tonight. Before you leave, I can give that to you. So at this time, I just want to open the floor for you all if you have any questions about any of the applicants on here, the funding amounts, so that I can answer what I can. If not, Mr. Brinson and the applicants, if they're here, can respond to those questions as well.
All right, I guess that's something to digest a little further. And if any commissioner has any questions, please feel free.
I do.
Commissioner Davis.
Thank you for all that you've done in putting forth this information. I do have one concerning the Alzheimer's Center, where we really reduced theirs. For me, this is an organization, excuse me, that we really need to keep at the forefront of Clayton County and where our population is going. And I would really like to figure out a way to see this increased. I just kind of want to know what were some of the parameters which were looked upon in making these decisions.
Okay, Mr. Brinson would have to respond to that. So it's on the spreadsheet, again, I'll rank them from the highest score to the lowest score. And on this spreadsheet, they had a score of 90. So they were below a lot of the other ones. And the funding, they requested $75,000. However, because of the limited funding, we did maintain the $35,000 that we've been giving them in the past. So that did not get reduced from last year for previous year's funding, but we were not able to increase it because of funding. Now, as I stated in the email earlier when I sent it to you all, you can increase in the areas that you want, but we would have to decrease in other areas in order to make that increase.
I understand.
So I would need some direction from the board on which areas to decrease to increase another area.
And I appreciate that, and I apologize for Ms. Bivens for not contacting you earlier in the
That's
week
okay.
about this. The other one is, well, I have 2 other ones that I'm really keen on. One is the National Association of Black Military Women, and the other one is Club Excel Youth Center. They have done an enormous amount of assistance over in the Riverdale area. And we've got to, my thing is, we as a county must begin to put forth an effort in determining how we can begin to keep some of these organizations moving in a positive direction and helping our youth, helping our military and our black women in the military and some of these other ones. So those are the 2 or 3 that I'm intimately and really want to see moving forward.
Okay,
And again, I apologize for not contacting you earlier on.
no problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you finished, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Help me with my recollection. Didn't we bring the Alzheimer's Center under senior services? We didn't officially do that.
That's a discussion.
That was a discussion.
Okay, so we still have not went
No,
back
sir.
and revisited that because there was a discussion about providing additional funds to them.
Yes, sir.
We provide support to them by way of, by transportation and some other things in terms of planning, but we never voted to.
No, there was a ask on the table to put them under senior services, but I guess we have not took that back up.
I think we're still moving forward with that in a
Because-
discussion.
Director Straughter Tanks made the recommendation, gave us a presentation. I just didn't recall if we made any decision on that. But seeing that we haven't, I digress.
Chairman,
And we'll move on.
we
Yes, ma'am.
did provide, there was some funding provided to the Alzheimer's Center through the ARPA money for
Yeah.
some,
I was familiar with that.
Construction.
Too, how much was that?
I don't remember that amount.
It was.
But we have it over here, we can get it.
Okay.
But it wasn't, we did provide a substantial amount of ARPA funding for some of their building, for the structure assistance to help with the facilities maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think, if I may, I'll wait.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
That brings up a great point. I think that in order for, if we're being asked as a board to make a decision about this information that's being brought to us, that it's imperative that we be able to be provided all of the funding that each one of these organizations have been provided outside of this funding source. Because we are making a decision to continue at a separate additional amount, but for instance, dealing with the Alzheimer's facility, there's a total amount that we supported them as. And so we need to have that clear picture. And so I've asked this over and over again, that whenever we're looking at anything that's brought before this board, that we need to have conclusive information brought to the board so that we are fully informed so that we can make a decision. Even though today is not a decision, but we're seeing the presentation. So that needs to be added. Thank you. Appreciate
Sure,
that.
not a problem. What I'll do is, because I did that with the Clayton Center, they have several different areas on here where they ask for money. And so in parentheses, under their service area, I did put the total amount of funding that they've been receiving. So I can do the same thing with that, with the Alzheimer's group. I can go in and put on the parentheses the total amount of funding that they've received in other areas from the county on that spreadsheet as well, and send it back out.
And that needs to be all of them. So if they got additional ARPA funding, then we need to see the whole picture.
Okay, and I think that one may be the only one that got ARPA funding out of this list.
I'm clear.
As of
Thank you.
now. Okay.
In addition to that, if they're receiving maybe other state funding.
Okay, so I can add that
That's a
to
great
the
point,
list. I
Commissioner.
can add that to it. That is in the applications. Because I know part of the application process, when I was looking at the rubric, and Mr. Brinson can speak to that, I think they get some points if they are getting other funding sources outside of the county. Is that correct, Mr. Brinson?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we can pull that data and add it to the spreadsheet. It'll make it a little bigger spreadsheet, but we can add it out to the right side of the funding sources, and we can provide that as well.
Mr. Bernstein, you look like you wanted to interject something.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We collect a lot of that data, and a number of the providers are behind me. And during our workshop, we asked for state funding, other sources that they're receiving from, whether it's federal, nonprofit, across the board. We don't break it out in the spreadsheet. There was, we were not aware that it needed to be included on the spreadsheet, but it's a change that we can make going forward and reiterate it during our workshops. So even the Alzheimer's Center, pre-pandemic, there were some changes over there. There was some additional funding that was required, and of course, Clayton County came to the aid and supported them. And this is going back 2 years ago, I guess 2 funding cycles ago. And the need is great, like Commissioner Davis said. If we can move them under the Division of Aging, that will be a blessing to that organization because it's much needed. I had an opportunity, not during the pandemic, doors were closed to me, but I had an opportunity pre-pandemic to go over to see how the services are provided. And much like Commissioner Davis said, we need that organization to keep its doors open at all costs.
And
Yeah,
I like
so-
to add,
Go ahead,
excuse me,
Commissioner
Chairman.
Davis.
And I'd like to add, if we're going to look at where they're also being funded, with the Alzheimer's, we'd also like to look at where funding has been pulled in order that has depleted their budget.
Well, I know for a fact that they had lost a couple of grants.
Yes.
Not through Clayton County government, but other grants that they had
Regional
applied
grants.
for.
Yes, sir.
And some of those grants dried up, as in federal government, and some of the grant sources changed how they do business. And they decided that our Alzheimer's Center was not one of those targeted areas for the funding source.
Thank you.
Do you know if they have a grant writer?
They did in the past. I know staff had been working on the grants this past year. Again, there was a change in leadership there pre-pandemic. And other than them submitting, I'm not intimate with them like I used to be. I should say.
The last I understood, they do not have a grant writer.
But the one thing I want this board to be mindful and careful of as we look at outside grants and money coming into these organizations is that that's great that they have additional funds coming in, but I don't want us to start reducing what we give, because I think they base what their ask is on their needs. So if we say you're getting additional resources from the state and federal entities, then the 10,000 or 15,000 you're asking for the county won't be needed, because and we have the matrix of what you put together that justifies the need of the individual organizations, as well as what they're doing with the money they receive from us. So I just want to make sure that we be careful that we don't cut out additional funding that they may be in need of, or could use in a positive way to help the citizens here in Clayton County.
That's a good point, Mr. Chairman. The mention of how do they use the money that's given and all, I think that's a grave concern of mine with some of these organizations and all. And I'm particularly concerned with the total people served and whether or not they are serving Clayton County residents. Because I know several of these organizations are like regional or whatever, Fayette, Clayton, Henry, and that's fine. But I would like to know that when I'm looking at this chart, and that was one of the things I was going to recommend, if we could make sure that information is on here. You know, how many Clayton residents are being served.
Well, they have it broke down by the percentages.
Not all of them.
So some of them did not put in it, and I noted, excuse me, I noted it on the spreadsheet. Some of them did not because I actually pulled the application and looked, because they did not have an amount on there, because we asked for the total number of participants served and the total number of those participants that are Clayton County residents. And on some of those areas, that information was not provided on the application. I actually went and pulled the hard copies of the application and looked.
Is it on the application? Is it requested information?
Yes, it is. There's actually a section on the application. It says participant, hold on.
While she's looking at Mr. President.
Some of our organizations, for instance, the Community Services Authority, they get grants in to provide additional services like Lockheed. Because they are well-run, good organizations, sometimes because Clayton County is one of the better counties when it comes to funding, they funnel funds to them to handle a Henry, to handle a Fayette. Right. And even when it comes to our organizations like sexual assault, they have to evacuate those women from where they are. They move them here to Clayton County, and vice versa for us. So there's, I don't want to say sharing of funds, but there's a swap out at times when it comes to providing services to some of our citizens here. So it's a tit for tat or quid pro quo when it comes to certain organizations like that. So they will be serving members of other counties, but that's not necessarily the case, and it's one of the things that we stress is making sure, ensuring that they let you all know, hey, how many people in Clayton County are you serving? And for some of the providers back there, that's exactly how I say it during the workshop. They want to know how many people in Clayton County you serving, and we try to get it, hey, how many people from that district? Doesn't always translate well on paper, but they are providing services for the people of Clayton County.
Well, that might be a stickler point next time. If they can't provide it, then they might miss out.
I was thinking the same thing, that if we can't get that data, then maybe that would be a recommendation when we're looking for funds to allocate to other areas, when we need to reduce in some areas. That would be my first recommendation, would be to eliminate those that did not provide us that information. Because on the application on page 6, and if you look on your jump drive that I sent you, when you look at any of those applications on page 6, it says participant demographic information for the last 4 fiscal year, and questions number 4 and 5 deal with the number of participants served, Clayton County residents served, and the percentage of residents served, and then the number 5 is the geographic area served by the program. And as you see on there, some of those, they responded that it had Clayton, Fulton, DeKalb, but some even were even statewide. And so what I did is, if it wasn't already broken out by percentage, I took the total number of Clayton residents that they said they served and divided by the total participants to get the percentage of Clayton County residents that they served. And I put that in parentheses or right beside Clayton in the service areas. So you'll see on some of those lines it has Clayton with a percentage beside it. and that's if they serve areas other than Clayton County. That's the percentage of the participants that they serve that are Clayton County residents, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that information should be specific within the application process, so
Right.
we might have to
It should
tighten
be,
up on
and
that.
again, I do have one or two that did not provide that information.
Because we all know that, you know, even with the federal grants that's applied for, incomplete application will get you
Gets
tossed.
kicked out.
So let's make sure we tighten those ends up as well.
Well, the decision hasn't been made yet, so especially understanding that we are in times where we're all having to service so many and just focus on Clayton County. I think that there's an opportunity for us to have that information once again before we make that decision. We don't have to go along just to decide on what's been recommended. So if those have not submitted that information, then we don't decide to give the funds to them because we have to take care of our people first. And secondly, when I'm looking at this information as well, I would like to know when is the last time some of these organizations have had an audit? Because it's one thing for me to be able to say, well, I'm serving Clayton County residents, but then as commissioners, I don't know about the other commissioners, we get phone calls all the time about people in need to where nobody pointed out where they may have been turned away. So there's a discrepancy there. So we shouldn't be getting a lot of the phone calls we get if we are serving the number of residents that are stated within these applications that they say and that they're serving. They should at least be able to answer the phone and not even call us back to say we're not getting a phone call back. And I do get that quite often.
May I ask, Chairman, is it too late to begin to go back and begin to request some of these some of the information that we're asking about right now from some of these organizations?
So the-
Because, and I'll use it as an example, Club Excel Youth Center on Valley Hill Road. I know they service a lot of individuals from the Riverdale area. They service a lot of our Clayton County CASA and foster care individuals. And if they've not put forth that information, I think it would behoove us to begin to ask for them, because I know for a fact that they service quite a large amount of Clayton County youth in this community.
And see, I was going to say something in reference to some of these organizations. That one, I'm familiar with the name, but I don't know. I can't say that they service my area, or our area, or whatever. But maybe at some point we would like to have some of these organizations come in and just let us know what they do and all. At some of our work sessions and all. See, some of them I know right off.
Yes.
You know, hearts and nerves. I mean, they do everything, and you know. And some of them I don't know. I think I even asked you about
Right.
some of the ones, Men on Fire, and some others. I mean, I could go on and on with some of these and all. But as far as holding this up, I really think we should go on, because some of these organizations are really waiting and wanting and need this money. And, you know, we can make changes or whatever, but let's make them, I would suggest we make them on the next go-round. And when you do
That's
your
fine.
training, if you would make those things known to the organizations, because I would hate to hold this up any longer.
Yes.
And they really are waiting and wanting and needing the money. So I would suggest we go ahead and do what we're gonna do on this, and then perhaps, you know.
Revamp it.
Chairman,
Exactly, right.
if I may, Commissioner Davis, on Club Excel, they did provide the number of participants. They have received money in the past. They did not apply last year. I don't know if they didn't meet the deadline to get the application in on time.
That was actually
But
one
they,
of my next
in
questions.
their application, they state
100%.
that their total number of participants is 127, and all 127 of them are Clayton County residents.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Hamrick, to your point, right after we got the phone today, I thought about it. Maybe moving forward, what we should do is maybe every quarter, have some of these applicants come in and give you all an update on the services that they
Right.
provided, because that has not happened, and I think that would be helpful. And I was gonna actually talk to Mr. Brinson to see if that would be possible to get them in every quarter, or if it's not, if we can't get them all in a quarter, maybe every month, have a few come in, one work session a month, to give an update on what they're doing, so you all can see
Or
that.
just let us know what they do. I
Right,
don't
we
know
do-
what
we get
that
a quarterly-
organization does or whatever.
The grants department, Mr. Johnson's department, area, the finance department, they do get a report twice a year. And they look at that to make sure that they're spending the funds on what they said they would be spending it on in their application. So they do have that. But again, I think it would be beneficial to you all as well as the public to have them come in and give an update on what they're doing.
Because I may have people to call me sometimes or send in requests, and if I don't know that this organization does that,
Right.
then I can't make that referral or
Right.
whatever.
So I work with Mr. Brinson to make that happen. Starting,
Mr. Branson,
starting-
how many organizations have applied?
This
Roughly,
past-
this one here.
We had close to 60 apply. Some got kicked out because they didn't meet the necessary requirements. But what I would like to share with you all, and the providers here can attest to this, I encourage them to invite the commissioner, especially where they're located, out to their facility, so that they know exactly where the taxpayer dollars are going. Not one of them walks out of that workshop without knowing they should be reaching out to all of you en masse. I always say, get at least 3.
2.
Oh, 2.
You can't do 3. Can't do 3.
But I mean, invite you out to
Right.
their facilities. But it's something that a few of them have embraced. You know their names right off the top of your head. But some of the newer organizations, the mom and pops, the newly developed nonprofits who are coming into this work, as you can see, at one time we never got anything related to the vets coming through. Now we're getting more and more of that. More organizations are reaching out to you all for support within the community because the need is there. And I always encourage all of the nonprofits, regardless of what they're providing to the community, please apply. The commissioners can say 1 or 2 things, yes or no.
Chairman, I have a question. So when I'm going back through this tomorrow, starting to add the additional information that the other funding sources that's in the applications, because like I said, I do know some of them get money from United Way, some get state funding, as you referenced, Commissioner Hambrick. I add those on there. I'm also going to add the Commissioner's District on there. Would you all like me to go ahead and eliminate those that I have that did not provide me information on the Clayton residents served?
To Commissioner Hambrick's point.
No, don't do those. I got you.
We're gonna,
Okay.
well,
So this
if
year,
it's the
you
board's
want us to
pleasure
go-
to vote on it, then we'll move forward. with it.
Right.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, attach that information
Right.
and
Gotcha.
make sure it's given back to us
Okay, I just want to be clear on
before
that. Okay,
the next meeting.
okay.
I have a question, and I'm fine with, at this point, not holding it up because it has gone through the process, but I'm always focusing on aligning our goals, and this is really for you, Mr. Brinson. And you know, we're constantly seeing the stats come before us about our need-based community and what are the top priorities within our community in order for us to move forward. Do we actually take that information that's provided to us and use that as a base of analyzation for this process to see if we're actually meeting the highest level of need in our community? I know a great organization that does that, which is United Way. And United Way, along with, I think it's one other organization, is constantly presenting that information before us. Even recently, we had, I think it was the New Workforce Clayton come before us and talk about our areas of need. I think that in order for us to move forward and really bring about real change in our community, these decisions that we're making here must line up with those needs, those most important needs in our community. Do you use that information?
Yep, as far as inviting folk to the table, nonprofits, we discover new needs every day. But the most needy folk in our county, we have organizations that are addressing those dire needs. We have a population that's 50% renters. We all know what impact the pandemic had on there. So those organizations that were giving out monies, they were in place. Did they meet all of the needs? No, they didn't. Why? All of monies aren't available that would that would be needed to sustain them. But yes, we do utilize the data to drive and invite folk out. Not everybody's there. Case in point with the vets, psychological support.
Correct.
Talking with Dr. Adams back there, understanding and putting the word out about the process, making sure that they know, hey, do you have Medicare, Medicaid? Is the Veteran Administration going to support you to pay for those services? Seeking out those organizations that are able to provide mental health services other than just our Clayton Center. Yes, ma'am. To answer your question, yes. We do utilize that to drive seeking out those resources for our county. Now, the funding side, you all control that. If they don't submit an application, there's nothing we can do about it. But yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis, you got something?
Yeah. Can we begin to differentiate, based off that same point, differentiate between the national need, i.e. COVID rental assistance, and our local need? Prime example are, which are National Association of Black Military Women, where we have local and direct needs that need to be funded within that, where they're not being funded by a national type of budget. Should we look at and say, look, what we're trying to do here in Clayton County, we need to begin to turn our focus and begin to focus directly on these Clayton County needs from a local impact, from a budgetary standpoint.
To answer your question, Commissioner Davis, what I'm thinking is, or how I see it when we're addressing the needs, we can address everybody's needs, but the needful thing, one of the things that Commissioner Franklin was talking about, hey, what are those areas? I would say for the most part, we're addressing the greater needs of our county. We won't be able to address them all, and I'm being honest here.
No, that's fair.
So when we start looking at rental assistance, we're looking at our Hearts to Nourish Hope Community Services Authority, even House of Dunn, when that those funds came down, the COVID funds, the CARES Act monies came down. We had organizations, Victor Marbra and
African Children Fund.
But we have organizations that are addressing some of the greater needs. Our vet, and I'm a vet, he's a vet, we have targeted needs.
Exactly.
We have targeted needs. And they're not always going to be addressed. And you're talking about a smaller segment of the population. So you guys' dollars are addressing some of the greater needs. Now, our doors are open, and I'll take that application, and I'll present it, and we'll evaluate it. Again, we got this much money.
I'm glad you brought that up, though.
I understand.
Commissioner.
I'll wait, because when we talked about additional funds through ARPA, CARES Act funds, the answer was given earlier that it was just Alzheimer's. But actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because we did give funds to some of these other organizations to help. So once again, we got to see this whole picture. We got to see, right now we got several buckets of funding. We got CARES Act funding that's been assigned within a year. We got ARPA funding that's been assigned within a year. And now we're looking at this funding. Just for me to be able to get a holistic view of how we are approaching the need within our county, I would like to see all of that submitted to us, at least on a county level. I'm not going to go as far to say, how much they're getting everywhere else. I do know it will help, but I think we got to have that in order to at least be able to make our decision moving forward. That's pretty much it.
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Franklin, we do have money in ARPA allocated. The Office of Performance Management, Dr. Smith, the COO, and Mr. Johnson, they're developing the process. It's $500,000 for this year and $500,000 for next year for nonprofits to apply for. And part of that rubric will be if they are receiving other funds from the county, so we can capture that information to present to you all when we bring those to you to approve once the application process has begun and those have been screened and recommended for approval. So that will be part of that process as well.
All right.
And the one thing we also got to be mindful of is that, number one, there's only so much money that goes around, but number two, that you talk about the needs of the community, you have long-term needs and immediate needs. And some of those organizations that address the immediate needs, such as evictions, definitely need to come to forefront, and they have a greater need now as opposed to later. So you got to prioritize the money that way as well.
The last thing I'm going to say, and I do have to say this, and it goes back to what we're all talking about here. We're all speaking the same language to a certain extent. But we've got so many areas that are working. You just talked about, of course, the COO and another organization, the other office working. Then you got this office working on funding in that certain way. The counties that are really making a difference are the ones that are making sure that they, number one, have goals listed. Number two, they understand what are the needs in the community and prioritize those needs. And then also make sure that all of that comes together as we make decisions. I think it was brought to us in a meeting once before where Clayton County does a great job of helping everybody. But if we could have a concerted effort to make sure that we are truly using that same rubric, that same prioritization rubric, when we're doing this process, the next process, then again, it allows for us to make sure that our efforts are really, we're able to really see the difference in the community with those efforts. And that's all I'm asking. We're too fragmented in helping in various areas. We've got to begin to come together, because at the end of the day, whether it's COVID or whether it's COVID-19, COVID-21, these pandemics, they're going to be here. Needs of a community are going to be here. But we've got to prioritize and strategically prioritize to make sure that whether it's 90,000, 100 million, that we're looking at how we're applying that funding consistently in every process. And I just hope that y'all hear clearly on that.
And let me just add, and I somewhat agree with what you're saying, but I also want to add that those individuals who are coming together and talking about the process as to how to disseminate the money that we receive, whether it's art money or CARES money, they're doing a fantastic job. And what we are doing here in Clayton County is making a difference in Clayton County. A lot of people are receiving a lot of relief. These organizations that are out here that's receiving this money and whatever monies that we're giving them through those other CARES or art money are doing, in my opinion, doing a pretty good job. I go and visit a lot of them. I have a relationship with a lot of them. And I know that they are making a difference in a whole bunch of people's lives here in Clayton County. And I just want to go on record right now to say those of you who are here and know that you are doing a great job in this community, I commend you and ask you to continue to keep up the good work. But to every commissioner's point up here, let's always be transparent in our actions and make sure that you provide the information that is requested of you, because that gives us as commissioners a clear lens, and there's no doubt in our mind where we shouldn't have to ask certain questions, because it should be in writing. We should know that this is what you're doing, and we're thankful for that.
And Chairman, can I add?
Commissioner.
Then if that's the case, then we as a board need to conscientiously identify our areas of focus.
Correct.
So that these organizations can know what we are trying to fund for the upcoming year or the next year. We've got to do as a board a better job of conveying that message to these individual organizations who are seeking and working diligently to help their area of need.
Well, I think the way it works is they bring to our attention the services they provide, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Brinson, through the application process, and then they have to justify the request. And then at the end of the day, regardless, we can come up with a matrix as a board to say, okay, these are the pillars that we as a board support. And then when Madam COO gives us that list, then we can look at the information that's been provided. And
I agree.
Nothing says that we got to go by this prioritization. We can change it any way we want to. But at the same time, it's important that the job that Mr. Brinson does by scoring them and taking all the information from the applications themselves. I guess you could say he's cutting out middleman. He's giving us the information, and then what we do with it is incumbent upon us.
Understand.
And then that's the way we can, again, as we revamp and look down the road,
Yeah.
to everybody's point up here, I think that can be done.
Yeah, but I think it begins to make the CFO and Mr. Branson's job a lot more focused and easier to begin to identify the areas that we're doing.
Yeah, but one thing we don't want to do is to discourage any organization from applying. Because if we say we're only looking to give this type of organization money, then those who are doing a good job out there might say, well, they're not even going to consider me now because that's not one of the items or pillars that they're looking to support. So I don't want to discourage them on back end because everybody should apply if they have an organization that's doing good works here in Clayton County. And then we just need to allow the process to take care of itself. And then we can take one step further by the prioritization that this board takes. Just my recommendation.
Point taken.
Any other questions? All right, well, you've done, Mr. Branson and CFO and Mr. Johnson, y'all have done a good job on this. And if you could provide us with that additional information that has been requested by this board, and let's make sure we get it before next week, I would appreciate it. All right, if there's nothing else for this board, Ms.
I do, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner?
I just want to say to all of those that are here, thank you for coming. And I have been to a lot of your events, and especially Club Excel and House of Dawn, a few others. I don't want to call everybody out. Unfortunately, I will not be at the meeting when we do vote on this, because I actually will be in training at the in DC, as Clayton County will have a representative representing the state of Georgia up there to make sure that we get more training. And my personal goal is not just to always commit local funding, but find areas of even additional federal funding for you all in federal programs. So I just wanted you to know that ahead of time, that even though I will physically be absent at that board meeting, my thoughts are with each and every one of you as I'll be up there working on your behalf, okay? Thank you.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.